First and foremost, I'm Jewish. I am of German parentage, German Jewish parentage, but which means they're also German. I feel I was born in Richmond. I've lived most of my life in Britain, but I have gone through a period when I was younger where people would say, "Where are you from?" And I would say, "Well, I was born in Richmond." They would say, "But no, where were you really from?" Which is basically trying to say, "Are you German Jewish?" And the answer, of course, is yes, and I'm quite proud of it, but it means that I feel insider and outsider. I don't think they were competitors. At least my impression was there was a kind of a bond, because I think a lot of the émigrés did feel like outsiders, but didn't feel ashamed of being outsiders, but rather proud of being outsiders. And I think there was a bond. I was in the Merchant Navy working as a waiter on luxury liners, on P&O luxury liners. I stopped and started with my mother on November the 1st, 1967. We worked from home for a few months, and then we opened in June '68 at Tottenham Mews. My mother was a brilliant educator to me, because she didn't tell me what I was doing wrong. She let me know that I would feel how I knew what I was doing wrong and what I was doing right. And I learned virtually everything from her. A brief example would be 1969, we go to New York, arrive in New York, go to the hotel, go in the afternoon to see an art dealer who has a very beautiful Henry Moore watercolor, which my mother says we should buy that. I said, no, we've only just arrived. And then she said, well, let's reserve it. I said, no, that will make us look too keen. Let's go back tomorrow. So we went back in the morning, it was gone. So we walked down the road, down Madison Avenue, and there's a junk shop. And in this junk shop is a large 40-inch Joseph Albers painting. So my mother says, let's go in, and we asked the price, and it was $2,000, which was even very cheap then. I mean, today would be $1 million. And my mother says, let's buy it. And I said, no, it can't be real. I mean, in a junk shop, an Albers, 40-inch, yellow, brilliant painting. So off we went, and we went to Sidney Janis Gallery. And my mother says, oh, we just seen an Albers on Madison Avenue. So yes, that's my uncle. He's a bit eccentric. Sometimes he puts modern art in the window. We rush back, gone. My mother never said anything. But I've never forgotten it. I mean, she would be here at 8:30 every morning, making sure that the cleaner had cleaned properly. She was always very, very positive. And I think the reason she managed to get through quite a lot of difficult times in her life is because she was such a positive person, and she didn't look at the problems, she sorted the problems. Right from childhood, when she was in Kassel in Germany. She didn't really talk that much about the past. She was really about the present and the future. And things would just sort of drop in place. I mean, she would just suddenly sort of say, well, oh yes, we had to leave Germany in a hurry because my grandfather, her father, got imprisoned because he was a biochemist working for Henkel, and I think also for Nestle, trying to work out how to take caffeine out of coffee. And I think his laboratory assistant was rather keen to get hold of the laboratory, so denounced him because apparently my grandfather had said Hitler was a painter, but not a very good one, which didn't go down very well. Kassel was actually one of the main towns where National Socialism was really in the foreground very early. I mean, my mother told me that at school she actually heard Adolf Hitler make a speech there, so it was pretty early on, and I think that's sort of 1933, something like that. And one of my grandparents' best friends was Annely Juda, who started the Documenta, and the whole idea of the Documenta was to bring culture back into Germany after the war. And Annely Juda started it sort of single-handed, the Documenta, and the first Documenta was in 1955, when I was 9 years old. And I've been to every Documenta since, right up to the most recent one. And I worked actually for the Documenta in 1964 and 68, where I worked on the Cristo project. So yes, I was very involved. And the reason I worked at the Documenta also was because the secretariat at the time in charge was Herbert von Butler, who went to school with my mother in Kassel. So it was a very close thing. In 1968, I was working for the Documenta, and I was meant to do translation for Cristo. It was meant to take 3 days, but it took 3.5 months because I worked on the project. And most of the translation I had to do was trying to translate between Cristo and his wife Jean-Claude, because Jean-Claude couldn't understand his English either. My grandmother was bedridden at the time in Kassel, and I would go and see her every couple of days and tell her how we were getting on. And the first time we tried to put it up with helium, and the helium burst and the whole thing came down. And so my grandmother said, well, get 5 ladies to tickle it and it may go up. My mother was always interested in abstract, historical, geometric art, and we got to be known for it. But she was never dogmatic that one couldn't show other art. And I remember one day a critic said, why do you only show abstract art? And she says, I don't only show abstract art. She said, bad figurative art is a lot worse than any abstract art. I would hope, and I think, that there were very few people who didn't like my mother or didn't respect my mother. And I think her legacy is that she is still thought of the old-style art dealer, honest, knowledgeable, and correct. And I would hope that that's what I would like to continue.